Welcome, all of you. My name is Farr Curlin. I'm the co-director, along with Warren Kinghorn, of the Theology, Medicine, and Culture Initiative here at Duke University. The initiative sits in the Divinity School, where we have the privilege of teaching, and we also are in the medical school, and where I am a part of the Trent Center for Bioethics, Humanities, and History of Medicine. This is a jointly sponsored event, a very special event for all of us. And in a moment, I want to invite our dean, Greg Jones, to say hello to you and greet you on behalf of the Divinity School, as well as Jeff Baker to greet you on behalf of the Trent Center. Before I do that, I just want to mention that for those of you who are now standing and recognize there are no seats remaining, if you would like, we have an overflow room with a video feed down the stairs, these stairs just to the left outside the door, and around the corner to 0016. Or you can take the elevator, which is just on the other side of these stairs, and go down as well. Also want to ask folks, if you have food and drink, to try to get rid of those, try to keep those out of the chapel here. And also remind you that immediately following our event tonight, there will be books, Kate Bowler's book, available for sale just outside here, out these doors, and she will be there to sign books for those who would like that. And there's going to be a dessert reception out on the terrace as well as in the halls here of the Divinity School. You're all welcome to that. We hope you'll stay to enjoy it. So with that, I want to welcome up Greg Jones, Dean of the Divinity School.
Thank you, Farr. It's a great joy to see a full house here in Goodson Chapel this evening, and we're delighted that you are joining us. Those of you who've been here for the conference this weekend, and those of you who have come for this evening's conversation. The church has long had an important witness in healthcare, and I think today it's even more needed than ever. Our New Testament colleague here at Duke, Kevin Rowe, is working on a project now in which he's looking at the spread of early Christianity and what he calls Christianity's surprise. That it was surprising in the Greco-Roman world, especially because of the innovative ways in which the early Christians provided care for the widows and orphans and the poor. And they were among the first to set up health clinics and other innovative institutions. Christians have been at the forefront in the development of hospitals, and in recent centuries of mental health care. And so it makes all the sense in the world for a place like Duke to have strong collaboration between the Divinity School and the medical school and the Trent Center, to be able to build those bridges and to have people like Farr Curlin, Warren Kinghorn, and Ray Barfield, who are jointly appointed across medicine and divinity. Tonight you're going to be the recipients of a wonderful treat of two of my favorite faculty and colleagues, Kate Bowler and Ray Barfield. We're delighted that you're here. We are grateful for your interest, and we look forward to this evening.
Thanks and welcome to all of you. I'm Jeff Baker. I direct the Trent Center for Bioethics, Humanities, and History of Medicine. And we're just really delighted to participate in this event tonight. I want to thank Marjorie Miller and Nikki Vongsness, who have been in charge of our reception, because I am not good at organizing things like that. And I'd like to introduce our two conversationalists tonight. Those of you who've been here for the weekend have already met Ray Barfield, but I'm going to introduce him again for those of you who are new. Ray Barfield is a colleague of mine and a professor of pediatrics and Christian philosophy here at Duke, and directs the Medical Humanities program within the Trent Center. He is a physician, a poet, a novelist, and a teacher. As a doctor, he practices pediatric oncology, and he founded, in fact, Duke's pediatric palliative care program. In the Divinity School, he teaches courses on Christian philosophy and this intersection of theology and medicine. And all across the university and the community, he has spearheaded just an amazing array of initiatives that are all around teaching students and healthcare practitioners how to listen, attend to, and respond well to patients in suffering. You may have heard him in recent months on NPR or at the Monty telling stories from his work with children and practitioners. The man, in short, wears at least 50 hats, but not a single tie. Kate Bowler is assistant professor of the history of Christianity in North America here at Duke Divinity School. And her first book It's hard to show a book while carrying so many things. Her first book, Blessed, A History of the American Prosperity Gospel. Actually, I'm showing the wrong book. Kate's a very charismatic individual, and you're around her, you start to forget how you're going to introduce her. Kate's first book, Blessed, A History of the American Prosperity Gospel, tells the story of this powerful North American movement that sees fortune as a blessing from God and misfortune as a sign of God's disapproval. Her work has been featured in the New York Times and the Atlantic, NPR, and many other outlets. And she's actually now working on has just completed her third book, which is called The Preacher's Wife, Woman in Power in American Mega Ministry, which follows the rise of celebrity Christian women. But our conversation tonight has to do with what happened in between her first and third books. In 2015, Dr. Bowler was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at age 35. In a New York Times op-ed that pretty much went viral, she wrote about the irony of being an expert in health, wealth, and happiness in the prosperity gospel while becoming ill herself. Her subsequent memoir, Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved, tells the story of her struggle to understand the personal intellectual dimensions of the American belief that all tragedies are tests or failures of character. And if you have not read this book, I just cannot commend it enough. It is a mixture of, I think what I've not brought out is, besides the tears that come through this book, the humor that comes through it as well. This mixture of joy, laughter, and profound sadness, and how she is able to convey that. So we welcome now Dr. Bowler and Dr. Barfield.
So grateful to be with you. Since this is like one of my very best friends, I feel it's like, thanks for coming. We have a carpet here, so it feels domestic. Welcome.
There's a lot of people here.
Also, hey, I'm associate. I'm unfireable now. It feels good. It just happened. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I can say anything.
Well, I'm tearing up these questions. We're going to get to the real stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a lot of people here. And
is this me buzzing you? Sorry, friends.
yeah, it's
hey.
not the first time static has occurred in the course of having a conversation.
Yeah.
We'll see if they can fix it. If they can't, maybe if I do this.
That's right. What if I dance?
One of the things that I will get to sort of across the conversation, I hope, is why there's so many people here. You know, what's the draw? What is it that has captivated so many imaginations around the country? I feel like we're at a special moment, and I think it's not the easiest thing in the world to say exactly what this moment is, but it seems important. And these are all friends, I presume. So we may even get personal, if it's all right. Because it's been a long journey from the first time you texted me and said, Ray, I need to talk.
So it was 3 years ago. It was 3 years ago today. That's my 3-year anniversary. My 3-year tragiversary.
Your tragiversary.
Yeah.
You know, and it is a tragiversary. First of all, I am, not going to get teary about the fact that you're here and you're doing well.
Yeah. It's just so special for me that we're here, like here. Because this is exactly where, when I was over in the hospital, this community gathered here to pray for me, like champions, like people without dignity.
Yeah.
and I thought that was impossible in a place with so many wine and cheese functions. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, is people who take on the desperation of loving someone and wanting so much to beg God for a better answer. Like, thanks. Thanks for your first answer. Let's take your second answer.
Yeah.
So this is it's a special day for me, and it's just really beautiful to be with you all in this space, which has meant so much to me.
Yeah.
Also, they provided me with 0 Kleenex, which I can already tell is going to be a problem.
You know, we talked about that last night, the absence of Kleenex in difficult situations, and we're just perpetuating the same thing here. Well, so in this journey...
oh my gosh, thank you. I love you already. It's great.
Yeah, thank you, Mary.
Serviettes, as we say in Canada. Thank you. Oh, man.
Am I turned off now?
Yeah.
Am I going to use them? Am I going to use this mic? Is this on? Can you hear me?
I can just talk loud.
I know you can. Yeah.
So in these 3 years that started with prayer and fear and bewilderment, that started with hard conversations while your toddler was running around the yard,
Yeah.
and your cute Canadian husband was trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
In these 3 years, you've had to come to a lot of public sorts of venues. You've chosen to come to a lot of public venues. And to try to say what it is you're discovering about responding to unexpected, bewildering, traumatic situations. And I'm just interested in you telling some stories about what this 3 years of discovery has been like. What have you learned?
Well, it's sort of the weirder part of like being public about the very private thing, because I started writing because it was the only way I felt I could be honest about what it felt like to feel like I was suddenly on the other side of plexiglass. Like everyone else was on the other side, and they seemed like their lives had like an operating logic. Their lives made sense. They were going to get groceries, and they had mouths to feed and work to go to, and all of a sudden everything about the logic of what I thought I was doing didn't make any sense. And I found that everything oh my God, is it better? Yeah. Hey there. Oh. Hello. Hi.
We're going to do karaoke in just a little bit.
I'm going to start with O Canada. Yeah, it's weird because it's very odd to be sharing intimate things publicly, because in a way these are some of the only places in which I am honest. Because the social scripts around being sick are so thick. And I don't know if it's especially true for women who are socialized into performative cheerfulness. But I'm usually, if you just like see me, it looks like I am always starring in a reality show about a woman who gets cancer and is extremely cheerful about it. And it's been hard to find a place to be unvarnished. And you're one of the people that has allowed me to do that. And weirdly enough, like being like in a space like this is one of the only times in my life where I say how it really feels.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that that I'd like to talk about. I mean, it's unusual to have someone who has wrestled with cancer and someone who has been with a lot of people who've wrestled with cancer on the same stage, trying to find things that are not entirely clear. Mm-hmm. That unvarnished part is something that also came out in a number of your clinic appointments.
Yes.
And your interactions with the medical institution. This particular conference is talking about a lot of things, but especially about how you remain present to someone who is suffering. You've had different kinds of suffering. I would love to hear about what you've learned about different kinds of suffering. But I think it's also can be incredibly illuminating to hear where presence didn't happen, where things went off the rails.
Sure.
Even when the person who was driving the train off the rails thought they were spot on.
Yeah. And I immediately did surrender the phrase, but they mean well. as like as like the signal to me that I should run screaming from the room. Because I found, like, in the two kinds of institutions in which I found myself, medical and then ecclesial, right? Because I was usually teaching pastors, around do-gooders of all kinds. So there's that group. And then this new opening world of hospital world. And weirdly, both of them had very similar scripts for how I should respond. It was, everyone was always hoping that I would gain perspective. There was a lot of sort of little course corrections in which if I said, like the nurse gives you like the sad pain thermometer, and you're supposed to be like, I'm a 5, and then I was like, because that's the moment where you think like they want to know. So I would write like, I'm a 6, I'm just hoping we can adjust my meds. And then they'll look at it and ask me a couple questions and then say, but at least you're here now. As if to say, like, well, let's bring in a little gratitude. Like, let's have a little perspective. I mean, my last CT scan, I was lying on the table, and the lady said, I bet you're so glad to be here in this first-rate medical facility. She's pushing me in, and I was like, just my angry face, like, smushing into the machine. Just like, I feel like gratitude is not first on my list right now. But I do find perspective it's trying to be, it's trying to be the gift, right? Because what I think they're trying to say is, it could be worse, is also them trying to say it might get better. It's trying to paper over the difference between what they know when they see my chart and what they hope for me. Because there's this really obvious discomfort when you see someone whose life should be considerably better. And it was hard being like professionally tragic, where people would see me and like I could see from a distance, like passing the peace in church was like the worst part of the service. Because I could tell, I tell exactly who knew who I was. Because they would just like look at me and then like it was like Cocker Spaniel face. And I was like, no. And then like, because at that moment, maybe I'm just like trying to get goldfish crackers out of my purse, or, like there's like a whole range of things anyone might be in the course of a day. And someone who needs perspective didn't always want to like rise to the top of the list. The other bit too, and I think this might just be being friends with too many smart people, but like teachers, teachers are like in it to win it with someone with a terrible illness. They're like Googling, so much Googling, and so much like I've recently seen a documentary, and I would very much like to share the contents of said documentary with you. And like my academic friends, and like some of you are in this room, I love you so much. I love you so much. It was a tough season. It was tough for us. But like they're just hoping, like, because it's just that desperation to try to get back to that place of control. Like, because so many people, right? Our desperation is to like outlearn it. Man, if I could just get ahead of it. We can make up the difference. We can get a little more runway. And sometimes, the truth is, the people you want with you, and this is the great thing that healthcare and the church has in common, is it is meant to stare down the deep. It's just supposed to stand there with you and be able to acknowledge that in our finitude, sometimes there will not be enough.
One thing that is also true about the deep is that we're pretty good at hiding it. And so a lot of people haven't been around a whole lot of actual real-time deep. They've gotten to it through novels or movies, but real-time deep is not something that they've actually had a whole lot of experience with. And so I'm interested in a couple of things around that. One is, I've never asked you why you did this, but you walked straight into the public light with it. Like you were not quiet. You were not quiet with this. You started writing you were writing notes for your book while you were getting chemo, and that's not what everyone in the chemo room was doing.
Yeah, it's more clear to me now, I think. But partly too, like I was really desperate. I was really desperate. I thought, I'm never going to see it published anyway. Like, why not just be honest? And like, it was just really hard to be honest, in part because I couldn't believe how bad it was. I found myself without language to describe. I mean, I found myself without theological language, even though like me and Jesus are like pretty tight. You know, I'd be like flipping to Proverbs, and then there'd be a lot of like, never have I seen the righteous go hungry. And I'm like, really? Really never? Like, it was just, it was so frustrating. And then, of course, and this is why I called it like, and lies I've loved, is like, I found that the people that loved me most were the people I wanted to lie to the most. Like my poor, sweet parents. You know, like, man, they paid so much to get us through college, right? Like, they're just like launching us into the world. And then, and just at the moment where they just get to like smile that their entire lives and all of their gray hair has amounted to something, then now they're trying to figure out if they're going to help raise their grandkid. And I just felt so terrible for them. Like everything that was coming out of my mouth was like absolutely either heresy, which I was like so fond of, and or just like, I'm pretty sure it's going to be fine. They'll definitely come up with something between now and 3 months from now. So, yeah, it's been hard to find people to stare down the deep with. Even the people who are the most obvious to you aren't always the people that end up being there. And so sometimes it was my nurses. My nurses were some of the bravest people I knew, and so good at that like light touch, you know, and acknowledging the terrible, but not trying to like saddle you with it. So my nurse Meg at Emory, it was such a crappy time because I had to like get on a plane at 4 a.m., get treatment all day, back by 1 a.m. And a lot of people in this room sent me like airline vouchers, and like it was just an act of overwhelming charity to just get me on the plane and there, and just propelling me there and getting me enough money for treatment. It made me feel like I was so grateful, but I was so tired and I was really scared. And I didn't want to do it by myself, and I couldn't imagine doing it forever. And my sweet little nurse, who looked like a little Anne Hathaway, all like little pixie hair and super cute, and we were the same age, and I kept thinking like, your life's fine. You know, like, not to be a dink, but like, you're fine. So, like, I'm proud of you for having a brave profession, but like, you're okay. And, you know, and then like one day she just like really sweetly just like crouched down beside me as I was getting my infusion. And she put her hand on my knee and she said, just so you know, I lost a baby. And she said it with like such like the right touch, because the way she was saying it was like, I knew that she knew what it was like to have the world end. And then all of a sudden, she was on my side of the plexiglass. And I loved her so much for that. And for all the healthcare people that I had that just had a way of saying, just because I'm in this uniform and you're in that rough cotton, doesn't mean that we're not the same. It was really beautiful.
Wow. What kind of things could have been done better? The beautiful parts are things that I personally need to hear more about, because I've taken things off the rails myself. When I have conversations with people, sometimes they seem to help, and other times I just hope that they don't write as well as you do.
Well, wait, am I saying a good thing or a bad thing then? 'Cause I got plenty of both.
Just help me. Everyone in this room, you know, I mean, the physicians and nurses and respiratory therapists and chaplains and people who have to deliver hard things, they're going to do that as part of what they would drive to work to do. But everyone in this room, at some point, is going to have to sit down when someone says, I need to talk. I've got this thing I need to talk to you about. And then they're going to have to respond, because the person will say it, and then they're going to stop, and then it's your turn to talk. And So places where that has not gone well, I have a sense of some of the places where it hasn't, but just ways we might be able to do better, ways I might be able to do better, and them.
Yeah, I mean, because some of the things that come to mind were when I was watching people have what I started calling professionalization moments. You know, where like important person is talking to other lesser important person, and they are exchanging information, and like I'm in the middle of like a complete breakdown over like the worst scan news ever, but they haven't noticed because they are exchanging important information. And like I have so much sympathy toward the fact that like because it's a job, everyone needs a full range of human emotion. Like everyone needs a minute where they joke with their friends and they exchange what needs to happen or whatever. But I just loved it when there was just a little acknowledgement that like, and it could be, I mean, and you're so good at this. It's the getting down on your level, the sitting with you. Like my very favorite doctor experience, other than you, who I adore and have 50 more stories about, was this one guy I didn't know, and I was really scared because I had to get this really, really gross procedure done after my last surgery, and it was like, it just seemed medically impossible. Like, you can't take that out of me. That doesn't seem, no, not without drugs? Wait, what's happening? So I was really nervous, and I think he might have been really nervous because he accidentally walked backwards into that tangly privacy curtain, and then, and then like lightly fell backwards. But what was so good is he chose his language so carefully. That was such a gift to me because I was scared. And he came in and he picked all of his words and he said, I'm gonna reach in like this and you're gonna feel a deep pinch. And I was like, okay. That was actually a really good description though. But he did it with such a sweet, like he came in and then pretended to do a dove release just to make me laugh, and then sat down, did it really fast. And then I was like, what just happened? And I was like so thrilled that he was both a person and was medically accurate. It was so compassionate. He was just doing his job, except the dove release part. And then, yeah, I wrote him a recommendation letter. I loved him so much. I don't even know if they need one. I just like got out my letterhead and was like, to whom it may concern, this man is a genius. But like, it was so good to feel like he looked me in the eye, he used a calm and professional voice, he described it beautifully, and then he just gave me a second to be a person.
That's great. That's beautiful. What about that issue, that little issue of the fact that everything you're talking about was actually taking place in your body? Because there were times in your hospital room where it was hard to be on your A game post surgery on opioids, on top of sleeplessness and stress, and there are a lot of aspects inside the medical institution that feel like they anonymize and take away anything that would be identifiable as your personality, which it turns out is not possible with you, but it can happen. And then some of the things that nurses or doctors or others have to do, you have to say, could everyone please leave the room? Because it's going to be quite personal, quite private, and some people experience shame around it. So I'm interested in what your experience of this being fundamentally like embodied, bodily, like not embodied in like our theological abstract way we talk about here. It's like, no, this is my gut.
Like my own body. And this was, I think, part of it was hard to sort of emotionally wrap my brain around cancer because like my own body was trying to murder me. It wasn't like, a robber or something. It was me turning against myself. And I think a couple things really helped because I think I started to realize that the further I felt away from my body, the more traumatic things became. So, because when you first get like a port and stuff and they're like pulling your own blood out of what looks like your very heart with a stick and it's like 2 inches from your eyeballs, it's really hard to like, because hospitals will take you to the very edge of your understanding of your own agency, right? Because you're like, you have to consent to things. You sign all these forms. You negotiate. Like, please use that numbing cream. Like, you're just negotiating, if you're me, to like the very last second. And then it's just surrender, right? There's that second where they put the mask over your face, and like, you have to rely on the expertise and good judgment of other people, and giving yourself enough kind of traction to feel like you're participating in it, but mostly to find your way back into your own body. And honestly, I felt like the church was just so good at that for me. Because, I mean, well, first of all, so many people abused their chaplaincy privileges to come visit me at all hours, just like taking the clerical collar out of the gym bag, popping it on, until like the nurse was like, "How many pastors do you have?" And I was like, "I have a few." And then like for a while, I had basically like an acne-shaped cross on my head for the sheer number of times people were like, "And I have anointing oil," and just like broke it out just for me. But what they were doing, especially with their hands, like just the weight of their hands on me when I felt like I would float away, it was the most beautiful kind of presence. And I think that's part of the way we can love each other, is when we can give each other ourselves again. Like, it was as if everyone kind of held up a mirror and helped me see what I could still be. Because man, I hated my body. I just wanted to like crawl out of my skin. I hated it so much. And not just in those moments where it's like after surgery and you're like, "Oh, what did they do to my belly button?" Like, I am currently on my 5th belly button, and it's like not my favorite. It is not my favorite. So, but, you know, you're just like, part of you is just alien to yourself. And then the rest is just to be, I think, like reconstituted by the sheer force of love. And like, that is what the church is for. That is what the people in this building have done for me. Man. And also their Trinitarian roundouts for prayers. It was really nice when they got really, and then the Father and the Son, and then like 50 more adjectives, and then it was over. It felt very official. It was really nice. Yeah. It was beautiful.
Along the way, it's been 3 years. You wrote the book, and then it took off, and it has a fantastic title. Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I've Loved. Have you learned anything about other lies that you loved that surprised you as you've been meeting people and thinking through this and trying to find ways to say it?
Yeah, I mean, because I wrote, and partly it's, like, when I wrote it, I knew, like, this isn't special, right? Like, a 35-year-old cancer, it's sad, but it's not special. I mean, my pain is not, it's not unique. Like, the great realization was that everybody's lives are fragile. And so all the, like, outpouring of letters and stuff to me really helped me feel like I could just see the world as it really was. And holding on to that's been hard because, like, I wrote the book to try to get over the fact that I was, like, kind of a monster. Like, just like, man, I've got a treadmill in my desk. Like, I am, like, moving. I'm just artificially determined to conquer all. I mean, I am the greatest of all, like, cat posters. I just want to always hang in there, no matter what. And then after getting sick, I wrote this book to try to sort of excavate my own heresy. And then I find, though, honestly, being sick and having to manage scans and having an uncertain medical future, which thankfully is getting brighter, but I still have to manage a great deal of uncertainty. I just found that, like, the experience of urgency around my life just made me as equally terrible as I was before. Like, I still don't take naps. I am, like, determined to, like, pack 200 things in the day. I'm, like, writing down milestone journals for my poor kid who probably doesn't need to have his whole life chronicled so thoroughly. But, you know, I sort of replaced one kind of heresy with the other. As before, it was because I thought I was going somewhere. And now it's just the exhaustion of finitude. And I find myself over and over again being like, what am I doing? Is this how I'm supposed to spend my time? What is life? Honestly, not trying to be like hokey, but like what is life for, and am I doing it right? I mean, I think yesterday, sitting in a Grand Forks airport on the ground, talking to my dad, I was like, Dad, am I doing this right? Because I'm so grateful for this time, and I just can't tell. How do you know?
What do you think? What do you think about that question? Because as you and I have talked, there's a sense in which you can ask that question, but you live while you're asking the question how to do it, because it's in the trial run. This is the run. And I've been very interested. I mean, as your friend, I've been really, really interested. I've trusted you, I've trusted you to tell yourself the truth, and Tobin to tell you the truth, and your friends to tell you the truth, about yourself. Hey, Kate, maybe you need a break. Hey, Kate, maybe you need someone to answer emails for a while, and you take some breathing space. But
okay, the one thing I will say that I've learned from you in this is, I find it very hard not to constantly just like have the clock out. I mean, I had it out before, and now I have it again, but for different reasons. And one of the things I've really been grateful to learn from you, and I think your practice with patients and with friends, is you don't know what's going to be in the room before you get there, and you have great faith in the act of discovery, like what the moment will unfold. And because otherwise I think life is too scary, right? Like it's too scary to know, like, did I love everyone right? I don't find it hard to know who to love. I just find it hard to know how, because there are so many competing loves in this world. We can love our jobs, and we can love so I have to trust that what you do, like I can only remember the last time I got a ridiculous set of bad news, and I asked if you would come over, and I had like all my scans out on the kitchen table, and it was my kid's 3rd birthday party, and there was balloons everywhere, and I put him to bed in his cute little fleecies, and then I laid out all my scans and reread every word about where the cancer was, and I said, Ray, I just had some bad news. I think it's going to be really terrible this year. Like, can you help me try to figure this out? And like, you must have thought that was a little bit intense to be coming over on a Saturday night to like Google my problems.
I didn't think we were going to Google. I thought we were going to have
the wrap-up conversation.
I thought we were going to have a wrap-up conversation.
Yeah. But like what I learned from you walking into that and me trying to live through it is like it takes a real bravery to face the unknown. And the fact that you do it regularly with me and alongside me, just to say, this whole thing is an act of discovery, but we have to trust both God and each other that there will somehow be enough. And that's the kind of prosperity gospel that just like bubbles up and fills the space. And I experienced it with you when I was terrified. And I have felt it in the hospital with like, everyone needs Ellen Davis to pray for them, by the way. There is. With a hand on my forehead, there have been times when it shouldn't have been enough. And then suddenly it was. So that gives me a sense that there is an unfoldingness to this life that my like staring at the clock can't describe. I just find it hard to do. I'm just gonna break these out.
Yeah, break them out. I wonder sometimes if the reason that your heresies feel refreshing is I don't know how to say this, but it's a willingness to take a risk, to say something that is not what you've been hearing from the pulpit, and to say, I wonder if things are not quite like that, is to step into a space where you're honest. Hey, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to be happening. I'm in my mid-30s. I have a little boy. I've got a hot Canadian husband. This is not supposed to be happening. And at the same time, to trust that God is big enough to, hang out while you work through your heresies.
Yeah.
And figure out which thing is a heresy.
Yeah.
What does heresy mean? And what role does it play? This. I'm just interested in fear and what prevents us from asking questions that are potentially.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the fears, I just noticed it when I hear. So, I feel like I'm an expert in the Facebook comment section of sad people. Like, I feel like if that could go on my full professor application somewhere out there. Dean Jones, tap, tap, tap. But like, it does, I'm good at identifying fears when I can see how we comfort one another. And there's this version of a phrase, and an impulse rather, just to say, like, people have the deepest desire to say a billion different versions of, nothing is lost. I promise you, nothing is lost. And my experience is that, plenty of things are lost. I lost like a lot of my liver. I have no more vestigial organs, like zero. I'm out of anything extra, basically. There's all kinds of pain and trauma and sadness and relationships that bent or broke, or fears I now have that didn't have before. There's all kinds of ways in which it's not true that the cost wasn't so very great. And I find it hard in this part because, like, I'm so grateful for how far I've come. But what people want to say is like, oh, everything's going to amount to something, I swear.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you, I have a lot of, the families of many of my patients bring that. I had an experience with a patient a while back who was on a slow descent towards death in an ICU. And the mother was a very prosperity gospel kind of person. And with a fairly good argument for why I should go with her. Because she said, straight out of Scripture, that according to Jesus, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you say to this mountain, throw yourself into the sea, and it will get up and throw itself into the sea. And her mom, the patient's grandmother, shocked me. She said, last night, doctor, I was in my grandson's room. He was getting worse. I could tell on the nurse's face that this was not going well. And that if he didn't turn around tonight, this was going to be a slow circle all the way down. And so I cried out to God, God, I need you now. I need you to change this now. And God didn't. And I was alone in the room. And I am angry. And then she said, Doctor, the reason my daughter is saying what she's saying is because I taught her to. It's my fault that she's saying these things. And this dynamic unfolded in front of me that I've never experienced before. And it was disorienting because of the contrast between what was happening in the room. So here's the question. We're certainly fallible in our exploration of everything. Your radiologist who misread, your non-radiologist doctor who misread an image that led to a terror, that led to me coming over thinking we were going to have the wrap-up conversation. We ended up with a very different conclusion. the radiologist who helped me come to that conclusion, even though I took all the credit for it, is here tonight.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. This is your life.
It took time. And now I'd like to introduce...
My parents come in. Everyone's here. Yeah. That would be amazing.
So, mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made, yes.
Same thing happens when we're thinking through anything, right?
Yeah.
And so in that room, the grandmother was saying, mistakes have been made. And guess what? I'm not the only one who made them. God made them. And the daughter is saying something very different. So here's the question. You're a scholar in the prosperity gospel. You were a scholar before this disease came along, and I know that this has put you in a place to think in a way you might not have been able to think. For my patients who seem to need something like the prosperity gospel, even though I know that this is not looking good, this may not be comfort for a long period of time. What else? What else do I get? I can't take this away and have nothing else to offer.
No,
what do we do?
And what has eroded is certainty, right? And you can't. And that's, it's related to words like trust. I found it always very hard when people be like, just trust God. And I'd be like, trust God to what? Like, what exactly am I? Oh my gosh, my poor little spiritual kid. He's like 4. He just mostly likes tractors. He's not very sophisticated. But he did watch, you know how like Catholics do Lent, right, in my opinion? And there was like a reenactment of the crucifixion, right? They do this at Immaculate Conception every year. And my kid goes and he sees this man be put up on the cross. And he just loses it. He is at the back of the church. He sprints to the front. They are like letting Jesus down off the cross. And my poor, sweet, probably now traumatized child, like throws himself on Jesus's body and weeps. Like Mary style. Just like went for it. And then like the poor guy just couldn't handle it. And just like opened his eyes and was like it's okay. It's all right. And then like Zach and like turns around to like all the children. The boys were dressed like the centurions and the girls were dressed like Mary, which is interesting. We can unpack that later. But like he like turns to the centurions and he's like, "You are very bad." And then of course he's being like dragged away at this point. And so but in a way that just like crushed me, like this really like stuck with him. And also because when Easter came and we were like Methodist, and so like nothing much, sorry, I love Methodist, but like nothing much happened, right? Like there wasn't like a fog machine and a big like reveal and stuff. There was just like an empty cross with a lot of flowers and he was just like not into it. And so like we went camping this summer and I was putting him to bed and he was like, "Mom, does God love us?" And I was like, "Yeah, he definitely loves us." And he's like, "But they killed Jesus." He's like, "The knights." He thinks they were knights. He's like, "But the knights killed Jesus." And I was trying hard to just be like, "But then he rose again and it was great and then he loves us." And it was like perfect little like, he's like, "But how does God love us when he protect us?" And I was like, "Ugh." It's like that's at the heart of like those kinds of questions when you want to say like, "But God, like, how do you love me if you don't protect me? How do I trust you if I don't know if you're trusting me if I'm trusting you to do what?" And like the only explanation, which is not an explanation, it's an experience, is just what I experienced in the hospital, which was just overwhelming, unending love. Love from the church, love from the people who visited me, love, and just a really intense experience of divine love that made me feel no longer disposable when I felt like everything about me was just paper. And so I'm not great on trust because I'm not sure what the terms are, but I am like big on love because I felt it. And I do think then that's the imperative, right? Is like it calls us then to go beyond ourselves and the narcissism of our own pain. Like I'm a little embarrassed to be like talking about myself and my stupid problem for this long because like, I mean, honestly, we are all going to suffer. But like the beauty of that great call of love is that it calls us beyond ourselves, and it becomes then the great responsibility, a commandment, if you will. Just joking, but for real, it's in there. But it helps me describe the kind of abundance that I've experienced in terms that are past certainty, which I just don't know how to do anymore.
That's so helpful. That is, I don't know. I have so many. Oh, it's time for questions, isn't it? Let me just say something real quick before to you, huh? I've still got 10 minutes before questions. Is that what that means? Okay.
I think that means he's afraid of you, or it's 10, or it's 10
exactly.
minutes. Yeah.
I never know.
Why?
You know?
Why is this happening?
I don't intend when I get sick to, I don't think a whole lot of people are going to know.
You are going to make me so nosy now about your life. No, I'm just filing that away.
Well, here's why. I'm actually quite I'm mostly an introvert, shy, private. I keep things, pretty close in. My job has put me in a place where I had to learn to be to compensate socially, but I recharge in solitude and I stay quiet. But it helps me. You have helped me just by allowing me to be a witness to your struggle. And I imagine that you could tell us a lot about a parallel struggle of living a public life, things that come along all of a sudden that are hard to just turn off when you want some space. But it's been a profound gift to allow those of us who are quieter to bear witness and to hear, to listen in as you struggle. And one of the things that it does, is it's very much like the permission that Jesus gave us to be honest, to hold contradictory things in our hearts, in our mouths, to cry. Last night I was up here talking with Jeff Polish, and one of the things that we got to was the contrast between Jesus, saying, today, yeah, you're on a cross. And I'll bet that this is not the life that you anticipated when you were a little boy playing with whatever the equivalent of tractors were in Palestine around. Yeah. I'll bet this is not the life that you would have picked. I'll bet that being naked up here and dying, maybe alone or maybe in front of jeering people, is not the life that you picked. But I want to tell you something. And I say this on good authority. Today you will be with me in paradise. But that did not, saying that true thing did not stop Jesus from being as honest as a little kid running down and telling the centurions, "You are very bad people." Because he cried out to the most intimate presence available in his life and said, "Where are you? Why aren't you here? Why?" And it's not just that I don't feel you. It was an accusation. You have forsaken me. Why? Why have you forsaken me? So those are hard words, and they're at the center of the witness of the Christian story. Yeah. And it both brings a kind of freedom, a draw towards truth and towards honesty, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and like I think too, it's just what we have to practice though, because like it's really easy for me. I mean, just going forward, it's easy for me to prefer the easy, shiny version of everything again. It's easier for me to prefer the Instagram version of my own life. And we have to practice loving what the world will deem garbage and will not see as beautiful. And like, because there is so much there in the ugliness and in staring down the deep. If there isn't that gap, then we can still convince ourselves that we're sufficient. I've learned more from being limited than I did from pretending to be unlimited. But I do really miss it. Yeah. Maybe we should do questions.
Yeah, let's turn to questions, because there's so many people here. We'll give as much chance as we can for you to ask Kate questions. You're welcome to use my microphone if you only have one. Any questions for Kate?
What do you think I can say to parents that we work with in a clinic setting who seem like they're alone? They don't have the Duke Divinity School visiting them, or a church family, or cousins or neighbors. Sometimes we meet people that just seem like they're single parents worried about their child. What do you suggest we say to them as people who work in a hospital?
Oh, wow, what a thoughtful question. I mean, because so much of it is just, giving people permission to be human. I mean, I found that right now when you're telling me that, I'm picturing that experience they have where they're in the waiting room and then they see the receptionist and they do all the intake stuff, and then there's a lot of forms, and then there's a lot of weighing people and measuring, and then there's more waiting, and then there's little brief bits of talking, and then there's just fear, right? Like it's just in the air, taking up all the oxygen. And because what you're describing is so many people who are usually just moving through a process. And it's so hard to just get off script just for a second to let people be human. But I find that if you look around, you'll see that the receptionist is busy telling people to be cheerful. Just like the person weighing them is telling them that thank you, there's someone else coming in. So you just being that warm eye contact presence, honestly, it just gives them that half a breath just in case they need to say I just don't know how today is going to go. And so few people actually need words. They just need the experience of you looking at them and seeing their humanity. So bless you for that.
Okay, let's talk about your appendix. Appendix 1. Absolutely never say this to people experiencing terrible times, short list.
I like how you're a text person, so you're no, in our first reading.
Exactly.
That's good.
Number 8. So how are the treatments going? How are you really? Serious question. In the book, you mentioned that Ray asked you, are you okay?
Yeah.
And at least when he asked you that, it seemed like in the context, it was not unhelpful. So help us understand the difference, and how do we ask how people are doing without doing what you said we're not supposed to do?
Totally. Okay. So, and these are just basic, now we're getting into it. Okay. So there are moments where, part of it is context, right? But there are moments when the person who is suffering or their family members finds themselves professionally answering the question, how are you doing? No, how are you really? It could be in the lobby at church. It could be in the hallway at work. These are people who are either people who care about them, who want to know, who are not necessarily intimate friends or something. And you'll have a zillion of those, second, third tier kind of people, not first tier, second or third. And they're going to want to know, how are you? And you are going to become the professional updater. And smart people appoint an updater so they don't have to do it. But if you just listen to the cadence, every conversation I've heard of goes like this. That's the invitational question, right? And then you just start like getting into it, even though you were on your way to the bathroom. Like you're just like trying to be honest. So you go, actually 45 people died that day, right? And then it's awful, right? Like you said something that now you feel like you have to keep talking, and then the other person's just trying to get out of it. So like they want to hear, but 2-3 sentences in, they're done hearing. And so and then you're desperate to find the off-ramp. So you force them to say something truly honest, and then are not giving them anything. You've only taken something from them by accident. And if they have to give that away 40 times in a day or 40 times in a week to feel like they're upholding the connection with you, they will go bananas. So just listen to how their voice is going. If they're like, anyway, they're just like trying to mitigate how much it sucks. So if you can just hear it in their voice, that bit of relaxation, like, man, and you have a second for them to go into it, then create a little space. You can just say something like, man, what a year you've had. Just one little second. You're not asking anything, but you're just making a little space. Then they can go into it or just be like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to Christmas. Every year. But the problem is that we're so desperate for you to feel important and also to keep loving us and keep being invested in us that we'll give you things even when we don't want to. Yeah.
I think I had to ask you twice, though.
Yeah, well, you also brought wine, so it helped.
That's the secret, Far. Keep your clinic stocked with wine.
Yeah, there's people.
Helps me.
Honestly, right now in my office, I have whiskey behind the Benny Hinn book, Today is Your Day for a Miracle.
So much for full professor, right?
Hi.
Hey.
So I just wanted to say, first off, we're both like slightly removed from Mennonites, so afterwards we can sing 606 together. But what I really wanted to say, or ask rather, since you're the local expert on people with what to tell or how to interact with people going through hard things, is I feel like with the people who are close to me, when the truck hits, like I know how to go in and love them. But the hard thing are the people who are not quite peripheral, but in your space, right? So like my coworker's husband just had cancer relapse for cancer that is curable, you know, and you know, we don't share the same faith background, and I want to know how do I love somebody without in those sorts of
forced intimacies. I get it, because you're not trying to take something, but you want to be the and it's I find too that when I have someone that's like proximate and suffering, I find that lately I just put it on the calendar for 2 months from then. Because 2 months from then, pretty much nobody is in touch anymore. And then I just try to send a meal or like a little present or something. It's just something stupid and not teaching a lesson. I mean, I also just feel really bad that I have this book. And I tried to have this preface that said, if someone has given you this book as a gift, I'm very sorry. Because like, you know, no one usually needs anything particularly instructional. But if you have a little act of love, usually something concrete, a month or two in, they'll remember you a year from then. You just need to be the people who keep vigil. And almost everyone's pain seems episodic, right? But it's usually forever. Oh, hey.
First of all, thank you so much. Some time ago, someone gave me the wisdom, instead of saying, how are you, say, how are you today?
That's nice.
Kate, how did you keep the particularity of your experience so it didn't become just one blur of bad.
Wow, yeah. The blur of terrible. Yes. Yeah, because like when you're going through something, it sounds like, like time takes on a very different quality. It's really like sludge, more than it is. It loses that speed and the ability to almost forget the day as it's happening. You just remember everything. I've never been very good at being kind to myself, like being the kind of person who stops for snacks on a road trip, But I adopted a new philosophy called I am basic. I am basic. I have a favorite Starbucks order. I like shopping at Target. I'm more into Kelsey Ballerini than I would like to admit. I am basic. So it sounds really stupid, but like I tried to find small delights that I could have, but then also other people could easily give me. So I developed favorite candies. I didn't have favorite candies, but like it was nice because I could create little access points for other people to delight me when I couldn't think of it. Because part of the struggle, right, is it just like the ongoingness of it, and everything is mentally undifferentiated. So I tried to be the kind of person who was hoping to be surprised. So that was my best little practice. But I did put up signs everywhere that just said basic.
Hi, so I'm a first-year medical student, and I think a lot of us have some fear around the inevitable day that we'll have to walk into the room and deliver some garbage, awful news.
Yeah.
So I was wondering what you thought clinicians could do to kind of be the witness when they're also the person who's ripping the rug out from under your life.
Yeah, wow. Well, and bless you for doing that. I know it's hard to it must feel kind of like you're in the process of trying to hide some of your humanness and learn all the scripts. But once, there's that beautiful, there's this gorgeous op-ed someone wrote called something like How to Tell a Mother Her Son is Dead. And it was written by an emergency room doctor. And it was really jarring and amazing because it talked about all the scripts you have to learn, like you will change coats so you don't have blood on that coat. You will learn these words. You will say your son. You will not say the body. I already know, I can tell you're already learning all those horrible things. So I would just say that my very favorite moments have been the one where I could tell that the you was giving a script, but that you were still a human being who just wanted to sit with me for a second and wasn't trying to get out of the room. So I know that professionalization is a huge burden, but just know your humanity is the real gift. So as long as you don't lose that, you are going to be a gift. So thanks. I still feel bad for the 12-year-old who gave me my news. but he is Canadian, so I was like, it's okay. I found that I was comforting him, where I was like, you're doing such a terrible job. It was so bad. But all I could say was, I said, you better hold my hand if you're going to tell me something like that. And it's just so funny. We all just want different ways to reach across the divide.
Hi, Kate.
Hey.
You are amazing.
Oh, that's nice.
I just want to grab you and kiss you. I have cystic fibrosis, and I've had a double lung transplant 12 years ago. And there's trauma in both of our paths, and everything you say just makes me cry because you are right on with everything you say. And the fact that you've really done this, not only, but 3 years, you have gone above and beyond. And
Thanks.
I think what you have to give for people like me is that love. You just feel it. That's why you're still here. But I think others are still here, and why you make this around you, it's because of who you are. And you probably ask why these things happen to you, and why this is why things happen to you, because you are a testament of God. You are right with you, what you're doing. Even to me, even if it's just someone like me who struggles day to day with living daily, and does God love you? What is your path? What is, why does God put you there? Yeah. And all these amazing people who are in the healthcare business, I didn't think I would get to meet you. So I just want to say from across the room in front of everybody, God bless you, and you are here because of this moment, even if it's for little old me or people doing the healthcare field. So thank you for everything.
It's beautiful. I was doing those like Lectio Divina things where it's like, go through your day. What will be the most important moment? So thank you for satisfying my Jesuit Lectio Divina practice. That was that.
Hi. So, as someone who is in divinity school but is also planning to go to medical school, and as a someone who's lived with someone battling cancer for the last 14 years, can you speak a little bit to how the church, how your diagnoses and stuff, how you felt as a parent, and the things in which, so your son and your husband obviously don't have to come and be the bearers of that to everybody, but can you speak to that as the patient and how you felt about that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I mean, it took me a while to realize we were going through very different experiences. And two, I mean, even like some of the benefits of what I got to experience, like the solidarity of other people, or even just the way people would reach out to me and not always like my parents or my spouse or something. It took me a while to realize that I was absolutely terrified of their lives, like me being the bomb that goes off that ruins everything I love. And instead my husband was afraid of a life that would go on diminished. And so there was like a flatness I found to sometimes the people in that circle around me that I couldn't understand, because I was having all these experiences of like love and thank you and Jesus and they were just like a little bit zombie. And I think it's part of the hard work of like the church and community to find ways to surround them who are just often on another planet, and all they can think of is the ongoingness of a terrible future. And the proximate of a situation like mine means that everything gets infused with a certain like hypercolor kind of beauty. So finding ways to kind of bridge those two different experiences, one in which things are muted and one in which the volume of life is turned up. And I think partly this is what the church is supposed to be really good at, is the ongoingness of people's pain. Is that it doesn't end after the diagnosis or those first couple surgeries, that 2 years from now, people are in a way almost more honest, or 14 years, right? Like it's, the more the years multiply, the more the cost has mounted up. And the church is meant to bear witness to that in a way that only the church is supposed to. We're supposed to have like elephant memories about other people's pain. But it's been just kind of a slow realization for me, because 3 years in, I'm only now just kind of looking around and realizing what it cost us all. Yeah, thanks for your question.
Hi, I just want to say thank you so much. I have a question that's for both of you, maybe a little bit more for Ray, but I'll just say that it's easy to recognize that both of you are a little unusual in terms of your courage.
He writes poetry. He takes long existential walks.
Does.
He's definitely weird. Yeah. You are.
You're right. So my question is, as a healthcare provider, as healthcare providers, we're trained, as you said, we have scripts. And one of the reasons that we're trained to not ask too many questions, or don't let a family member stand between us and the door when we're delivering news, is because if we do, then we have to hear things that are really hard, and we have to hear that we're failing because we're healthcare providers and we're supposed to help people. And it becomes very personal for many healthcare providers many times to admit failure. I don't think any healthcare providers want to be cold. I don't think that's why people go into healthcare. I don't think they want to not reach across. It's really hard many times. And so I just wondered how you help healthcare providers have the courage to do. I think a lot of the comments you've made, Kate, are so really appreciate them, and I get it in terms. You can feel the love in the room, and I want to extend that a little bit and say, how can we help healthcare providers to find courage?
Well, so I'll say a couple of things, and then see what Kate wants to say, because a lot of times I think that from inside healthcare, we have blind spots. And I'm not entirely sure, as messed up as healthcare is right now, that we're going to find the resources for fixing it inside our own system. We may need help from outside. We may need people who are not raised 80 hours a week for 15 years of training in a system that tells us who we are and hands us a script. We may need some people who haven't done that to come in and say, what the hell are you people doing? Because they can see it, whereas I can't, because I'm in it, I'm embedded, So I need people helping me with blind spots, and that's one of the things that Kate's doing. It's one of the reasons the room is full, is because you don't mind calling us on blind spots.
I just can't help remembering the appointment. He comes to my appointments, and that we're both working on a very different set of assumptions. He's thinking very, I think, pastorally about what the doctor and his entourage is experiencing, and I'm like, oh, sweet Heavenly Father, if you do not make my life better in the next 3, 2, 1, half of you are leaving. And so, yeah, we're both we've had conflicting
I set up therapy sessions with her doctors, usually a week after her appointments, just to walk them through what happened. But the thing is, it is
honestly, the last time I did this, the one terrible was gave a misdiagnosis of awful news that I would die that year, and then the junior doctor seemed interested. He was, as it happens, having another experience in his mind, and then the doctor started looking at the charts, and the junior one looks at me. He goes, "Did you write a New York Times op-ed?" I was like. I was like, yes, to beg for better care, as it turns out. So I do find there's this weird auditioning process that's going on. I feel like I'm auditioning for the role of someone who should be saved. Every time. Yeah. Here's a picture of my kid. Hey, we're almost the same age. My office is over there. I'm just I used to wear blazers. I'm trying so hard to make us seem like we're the same. So somehow I'll get that extra second that gets me past the diagnosis I have and into better care.
So that's so interesting, because, your question was about how, and I guess it's a question about whether or not this is something we tell ourselves, but that we don't want to fail. We're very interested in, we always want to save. We always want to be helpful. But your experience is, hey, people, are you even paying attention? Did you look at my chart before I walked in the room? Did you bother asking someone who actually knows how to read MRIs what that thing might be on that liver before you told me that I'm going to be dead and not able to make it to the next Christmas? And so that's a very different kind of perception on the inside of the medical, where we're like, well, we don't deal with failure very well because we're oriented towards success. We're always trying to do excellence and saving people and things like that. And the perception is, hey, why is it that I have to keep drawing your attention back to the fact that I'm actually a human being sitting in front of you, worth being saved and worth getting the very best care and really good advice, and I want you thinking about me, at night, not just forgetting me when you move on to the next.
Ruin your lives with compassion.
Exactly.
Kind of, but I do find this is partly why I'm so grateful to know doctors in real life and to be able to see man, with their schedules and with the pressure on them and with the way they rehearse their mistakes, I can see now that it is a crushing weight. But I usually have to try to convince a dermatologist to check my moles just in case I live that year. Mm-hmm. And I find talking people into caring for me has become, a full-time profession. So it's fascinating for me to like always be seeing it in both angles, that deeply human side, and then the one where I'm jazz handsing my way through every appointment.
That's where we could keep, that's an area where a conference like this that's trying to ask a question. How do you walk in the room and become meaningfully present to someone who is suffering? Because part of your question is, okay, fine, let's talk about how to be present to people who are suffering. If we're going to talk about that deeply, then we're also going to have to talk about what the effect is on me when I am invited into proximity to your suffering. And I think one of the things that happens in medicine, I think most of the stuff that happens in medicine, aside from the economically dubious corporate takeover of American medicine, is, I'm sorry. Did I just go there?
No, but I was at the Aspen Ideas Festival, and they were like, all the pharma companies were handing out swag bags, and I was like, I get it. I'm a convert now. Like, once I get the swag bag,
exactly.
I feel good. Yeah.
But most of the things I think that happen in medicine are not done malevolently. They're done with benevolent intent. And I believe that there are, one thing is that, are we almost out of time? We're good? One of the things is that the scripts are the starting point. But you don't want someone to be using the same script at 20 years of practice that they were using at 20 hours of practice the first time during their internship they had to go and talk about something hard. We need to keep growing. And eventually what the scripts do is they keep crazy people from hurting others. But as you use the script and you learn the nonverbal parts of what it is to be present, which sometimes comes down to nothing more than closing the door and not running away until you are capable of returning to yourself, relinquishing your panic, which frequently is grounded in your own insecurity, your own sense of being an imposter, your amazement that they call you a physician and allow you to write prescriptions. So you have to grow into these things, right? So what I would say as a single point in response to your question is that conferences like this can call us to question standard wisdom, which is that we need the language of professional boundaries and distance and things like that so that we can negotiate our proximity to other people's suffering, and that's how we're going to stay in the long game so that we can help people. I actually think that what leads to the long game is learning how to lean into it and stay there long enough to actually realize that leaning into it is an experience of authentic human connection in a situation that touches every single human being that you're going to come across. And we just need to rethink that kind of thing. Take the last word, Kate, and then we'll get out of here.
No, I will just say then, on my I cannot think of a better group of people to spend my 3-year tragiversity with than people who really, truly care about bearing witness in the midst of pain. So bless you all, and thanks so much for spending this time with us.